Right. The timetable will be the newer features and the valuable features on the traditional Microsoft products. So we're going to spend a bit of time on Excel, Word, and Outlook. And then given time at the end, I'm sure there will be, I'm going to have maybe 10-15 minutes talking about Teams, and then a little bit of an overview of 365. So that's the plan for the day. We will have a 10-15 minute break after about an hour or so, and then after 2 hours of the session at 11:30, my intention is just to stop it there in terms of me talking and teaching, and we're going to have a Q&A session which can last up to an hour. I don't mind how long it lasts, and so we will actually finish the formal bit at 11:30 and the session will close at 12:30. Dip in and out as you wish, your call. So I'm going to share my screen and we're going to start a little bit on Excel. So that's going to be my first port of call. So if you would like to load an Excel, if you'd like to load an Excel spreadsheet in front so you can actually work on it, that would be fine. So hopefully you can see an Excel spreadsheet on the screen now because I shared my screen. Can you give me a thumbs up, Rich, if you can see that? Are we okay? Perfect. Lovely. Fine. And don't forget, folks, please ask away if you need to in terms of interrupting me and asking questions. I want you to do that because I'm keen for this to be very interactive. All I have in front of me now, guys, and hopefully you can see this, is I have a very, very simple spreadsheet which has a number of salespeople listed in column A here, regions across here in row 2, and then this principle here of Donald Duck has sold 12 widgets in the north and Mickey Mouse has sold 23 widgets in the south. You get the general idea. Now, the first thing I want to introduce you to is the use of Autosum. And I guess many of you use this already, but I've got a bit of a trick involved here, because I'm sure what many of you have done in the past, if you've clicked on where the total for Donald Duck goes, you come up here and you click on Autosum and the equation is calculated for you. So you can click the tick or press enter and that performs the calculation for you. I'm sure some of you are familiar with that already. And you may also be fairly familiar with autofill, which is a process whereby I move the mouse to the bottom right-hand corner of the calculation. You can see the mouse changes from shape to a Swiss cross at the moment, to the small black cross. And now I can drag this down. It's called autofill. And the formula in F3 is repeated all the way down because I've just dragged down. That saves you writing an individual formula for that one and an individual formula for that one. That's fine. That's okay. That's nice and easy. However, the first thing I want to show you here, I'm just going to delete those, is how you can fill in the totals for all these cells here and all these cells here with one mouse click. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to extend the highlight to one to the right and one below each of the sales figures. So I'll set this area here and I'll set this here in readiness for the formula. Then all I now need to go and do is click on Autosum, which is in the editing toolbar up here, and they all get completed in one fell swoop without you having to do these individually. So hopefully that's the first little tip and trick to introduce you to see how powerful Excel can be. Now, one of the main issues within Excel is that folks accidentally overwrite formula. Because all these cells contain inside Excel, they can either contain information or calculation. This is an information cell, i.e. 12 sales. This is an information cell, we're talking about the North region. And these are calculation cells. You've seen that because we've just done them. We've just directly made that calculation appear in these cells here. Now, the issue often with spreadsheets is that information is, I beg your pardon, calculation is overwritten with information. So in this scenario here, Mickey Mouse has come to me and says, hello, Mr. Sales Manager. I didn't sell 67 widgets in the West region. I sold 77. That total should be 180 over here. And you agree with him. He's right. He did, in fact, sell 77 those. And so what happens is I overwrite that 170 with a 180. Press enter. Now, In that scenario, hopefully you can see why that's incorrect. What I should have done is change that to 77. However, if you just look at this spreadsheet as it is and the view you have of the spreadsheet as it is now, what you probably don't know which is information and which is calculation. And there's a nice button to help you overcome that. If you click on the formulas ribbon, and maybe I'll just slow down a little bit to give you a chance to practice this if you wish. So if you click on the formulas ribbon, 3/4 of the way across on the formulas ribbon here, you've got a formula auditing section. And in there, you have a button which toggles on and off called Show Formulas. I'm going to click on that now, and hopefully it says what it does, what it says on the tin, and hopefully you can then see which of these cells contains information and which of these cells contains calculation. So these are all information cells, and these clearly are calculation cells. Now, hopefully that gives you a little bit of a view on, you can see here that that's the correct calculation, that is the correct calculation, and here somebody has actually overwritten the calculation that should be in that cell with some information. Correcting it is really simple and really straightforward. All you need to do is click on that cell there and drag down as if you were in normal view mode. And now you can see we have the correct formula in place there. We can take that button off. And now we're back to normal. And then we can make the change we should have made, which basically was 77 appears in there, and the total is 180 as expected. I think Show Formulas is a really invaluable button to use. And to that end, I have the Show Formulas on something called the Quick Access Toolbar. Now, the Quick Access Toolbar is this area of icons up here. You may have had it delivered to you, especially if it's a relatively new installation of Excel or Word or from 365, and you may only have Save and Undo and Redo on there. You may only have a limited number of buttons on the Quick Access Toolbar. Now, you can add to your Quick Access Toolbar in a couple of ways. The first way is if you click on this button here, Customize Quick Access Toolbar, which is a dash with a downward arrow underneath it. If you click on there, what it gives you is an option to have these relatively frequent suggestions selected or not. It's simple enough. All that happens here is if the box is ticked, then the button appears up here on the Quick Access Toolbar. If it's not ticked, it doesn't. One I have on all my applications is Quick Print. Because if you think of the process of going File, Print, etc., etc., it can be 3 or 4 mouse clicks before you actually get to the point at which you actually send your spreadsheet to the printer. All I need to do here is click on that Quick Print button there, and it prints it for me to my default printer in black and white normal and just 1 copy, which is what I'm normally looking for. So that is one way to add icons up here to the Quick Access Toolbar. The other way is if you hang the mouse over the particular button you want to access add up here and right mouse click. Now, right mouse click isn't used an awful lot, but a lot of people it's used quite a lot with. Some folks, they know about it. Think right mouse click as a mini menu, and say I want to trace precedence up here as a button. I'm just picking a button at random, doesn't matter which one I pick. If I click on here, you will see you get the option that says Add to Quick Access Toolbar. And if I click on there, you can see I have a new button in place. I've added the Trace Precedence to Quick Access Toolbar. The real value of this is if I want to do a Show Formula, I don't actually have to be in the Formulas ribbon. I can be back in the Home ribbon because these icons up here are static. They don't move. They're independent of which particular ribbon you're on. They stay there all the time. And you'll be pleased to note the Quick Access Toolbar is part and parcel of Word, is part and parcel of Outlook, is part and parcel of Excel. It's in them all. I think it's a really useful feature. So what I'm just going to do is halt for 2 or 3 minutes, have a look at the chat, see if there's anything there, and just give you a chance, a little bit of a practice on doing the Autosum here if you've not done this before, but probably more appropriate is to add buttons to your quick access toolbar, either from here by ticking or by right mouse clicking on the option in question and adding to the quick access toolbar. And I'll keep my eye on chat in case there's any questions appear. And if you have any questions, please feel free to fire away. Okay, so I'll give that a couple of minutes and then I'll be back with you.
I think all the chats at me at a minute, Andy. So
yeah, any questions? Sam?
Yeah, like I say, anybody has any questions, you know, just shout up, unmute yourself. Whenever you're ready, Andy, I think. So everybody's okay to carry on?
I think we're good.
Cool.
Okay. I'll go back to sharing my content again. Lovely. Okay. Obviously, everybody's quick access toolbar experts because we know all that, but it's fairly straightforward, so that's good to see. Right, the next feature I'm going to discuss is two Excel features that kind of sit hand in hand. These are data validation and named ranges. Data validation, named ranges. I'm going to deal with named ranges first. And what I've set myself up here in my Excel spreadsheet, it's a separate worksheet down the bottom, which I have called named ranges, and you'll see why in a second. What named ranges allows you to do is actually give a specific name to a range of cells. So in our pretend world of our widget making company, what I'm going to define, and you may wish to do the same now, or you may wish to wait until we have a little break and do it, but maybe do it now, it's up to you guys, is I'm going to actually type in the names of the colors of widgets we make on the production line this week. So it's simple. I'm just typing in 4 random colors. So we make red ones, we make blue ones, we make green ones, and we make orange ones. So those are the 4 colors we make on the production line this week. How you set that up as a named range is I highlight the 4 cells, I move the mouse upwards into what is called the name box. That's this area here. And you can see I've hung the mouse over and it actually says name box. And at this point, I type in the name of the range, remembering to call it something sensible like colors. The temptation at this point is just to click away somewhere in the spreadsheet. It doesn't work if you do that. What you have to do is you have to press the enter key. So I'm now, I know you can't see me doing this, but I'm now pressing the enter key. And now I have a specific area in my spreadsheet which I have called colors. And I can go to any point at the name box, click in colors, and I will always go back to the point. I can go anywhere in my spreadsheet. Doesn't matter where I go, I can actually go from here and access colors. So that's how you set up a named range. I'll just illustrate that again by just setting up a second named range. I'm going to do this in B, and these are going to define the regions. So I'm going to do south, north, east. Simple typing. All I've done at this point, highlighted them, come up here as I did with the colors, and I'm going to. Yeah, guys, you can't have any spaces when you do a named range. It doesn't recognize spaces, it thinks you've got to the end of them. So I'm going to call these regions. And just to emphasize again, what I'm not going to do is press enter. Sorry, just click away. I have to press enter for this to be accepted. So now I have two specific areas. I have a named area called colors, and I have a named area called regions. Okay, so that's the how. I guess you're asking at this point, why would we want to do that? And this is where data validation comes into play. So in our made up world of our widget company, what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a data validation on column I, this column here. What I basically mean by that, I'm going to have a check for the contents of column I to make sure it only contains the cells that I'm going to allow it to set to contain. And this is a process called data validation. You get at it via the data ribbon up at the top here, and there you see an area called data validation. And you see, because I use this a lot, I also have data validation as part of my quick access toolbar, which is what I mentioned before. So I can either select it from here or I can select it from here.
I have a quick question.
By the way, lovely. I like questions.
It's only a little one. What if you've not selected everything, typed in regions? How do you reset that regions section? Because I've I've typed in north, south, east, and west. I only selected 3 of them, set regions, and now I can't reset it.
No problem at all. Great question, and please keep these questions going. Okay, what you have to do is if you go to the formulas area, and then if you click on name manager, you should see regions here. And so which one did you do, colors or regions?
Regions.
Yeah, click on regions, and then you can edit it.
Oh, okay.
And then you can say, and down in the bottom here it says named ranges, wherever, just change. So if you've not allowed sufficient space, yours probably says something like B1 to B3 at the moment. Change that B1 to a B, change that 3 to a 4. Click the tick. And then close, and now it should recognise all 4.
Okay, thank you. I'm done.
Great question, thank you. No, keep us going. It's brilliant. Excellent. So just recalling back, a bit of data validation now on column I. So we can either do this from the buttons at the top here, or we can do this from the data ribbon. Both end up at the same place. So what we're going to do now is set a restriction on this particular column. So currently, as is the default, I'm allowing any value. I'm going to change that. What I'm going to do, I'm going to change that any value into a list. And because we've actually defined, sorry, beg your pardon, what's going to happen here is I'm only going to allow the colors of the widgets that we make on the production line to go into column I. That's the restriction we're going to introduce. That's the validation we're going to put in place. So column I can only contain one of my 4 colors. And we already have these 4 colors listed. So I'm at this point, I'm going to say equals colors. Equals is very important. You have to put equals in to tell Excel that I'm actually referencing a named range. And then I click OK. Now, when I click any cell in this particular column, it actually gives me the options to pick one of my colors. Or it doesn't stop you dragging down. You can still do that, or you can still type in a valid name. Still accepts that. It doesn't prevent you from doing that. But probably the better bet here is to go and pick from the list. Now, this is really useful if you send spreadsheets out to colleagues, to associates, to suppliers, to customers, and you want to restrict the values that come back in that particular spreadsheet. In a sense, you're forcing the content of that particular column. Right, just to take this a little bit further, you'll see now what happens if I type in a colour that doesn't exist in my list. We get an error message. That error message says, as you can see, this value doesn't match the data validation restrictions defined for this cell. Now, you and I understand that. We know what that means because we've got a bit of a view about what data validation is. However, if you sent that spreadsheet away to supplier, colleague, customer, and they weren't familiar with it, what it would be good to have is something a little bit more useful in terms of a meaningful error message. Because many people, if they don't understand data validation, won't know what that error message means. So I'm going to column I, introduce data validation again, but this time I'm going to have a look at error alert. And that error alert allows me to change the message that appears for an error. So in title, I will put something like wrong color. And then in the error message, I'm going to put something along the lines of, please select drop down. Obviously, you can put what you want in there. It's up to you. Make it appropriate to the audience and click OK. Now, when I pick a color that doesn't exist and press enter, we get, excuse the typing, we get a meaningful error message. So that's an example of data validation. And again, I'll just leave it a minute and just let you have a little practice with that if you haven't been doing so, to ask some questions. Really useful feature to govern the contents of cells and how they work. Okay, so I'll just leave you a minute with that. Okay. All very knowledgeable, this audience, Rich. They seem to be getting on fine.
Yeah, hopefully learning some things already as well. All good.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, cracking up. Good. Share my screen again. Now, there are more things you can do with data validation. It doesn't have to be the restriction as listed there. For example, you may wish to govern a certain value of number in a particular column. So once again, I'm going to go here and up to data validation, and you can see from settings here, I'm not just restricted to any values or lists. I could specify that has to be a date, that has to be a time, that has to be text of a certain length, whole numbers, decimals. And when you pick whole number, for example, you could define a number range. So in this case, I could say that number is between 1 and 100. Click OK. Now, because it's not a list, we don't get, because it's a list, not a list, we don't get a drop down. However, the restriction is still in place. So we can type in 12 because that's a valid number, but we can't type in 123 because that's an invalid number. So please don't think that data valuation is just restricted to defining from a list. It can define from, and say there's all sorts of variations on what you can validate. Marvelous. Okay, next feature I'm going to talk about inside Excel is conditional formatting. Conditional formatting is from the home ribbon here. So here's a conditional formatting button that governs the format of the cell depending upon the value in the cell. So in this situation, what we're going to do with my simple spreadsheet here is, as the sales manager, I'm looking to find out who has performed well on the sales for January and who has performed not so well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the cells where I want the conditional formatting to be applied, these cells here, and I'm going to go up to the home ribbon and I'm going to click on the conditional formatting button. And the first thing I'm going to do is set up a rule, and I am interested in the salespeople who have sold, for example, less than 25 widgets in January. So I'm going to apply a less than rule. So I said my number was going to be 25. So format cells that are less than 25. I'm going to pick a format for that cell, light red with dark red fill. There are various formats I can choose, or I can customize the format, which is the more traditional screen you'll see. If I chose that, you get the option, which I'm sure you're familiar with, of setting borders and fill and things of that nature. But I'm going to, for the purpose of our discussions this morning, I'm just going to pick the one that's provided, light red fill with dark red text, and I'm going to click on OK. Now you see any value less than 25 is emphasized for me with this red on red. Now you could quite rightly say to me, Andy, there's only 40 cells here, and I can look and I can see, and you're right, 100% right. However, the key thing here, if we have a spreadsheet as wide as Sheffield and as deep as Barnsley and a lot of cells here, highly likely that you could miss some of these values. So data validation gives you this instant visual snapshot of certain criteria. We can prove this works if we change this number to 56, the formatting disappears. If we change this number here to 12, the formatting appears because the criteria have been met. Now, back in the good old days of Excel, I'm going back to 2007 and even before that, there were restrictions on the number of conditional formattings you could have. You can only have 3. That restriction has gone away now. You can have as many as you like. So in this situation, I'm going to go conditional formatting, and this time I'm going to set up a rule. I'm going to highlight a cell rule. This time I want to know who's performing well. So now I'm going to say greater than, and I'm going to pick a arbitrary 75, and it will be daft having red on red again because you couldn't distinguish the low performing salesman from the high performing salesman. So in this case, I'm going to pick green on green, i.e. green is okay and red is bad. So I click OK again. Then again, you can see the same process follows. So the good salesmen are green, the medium performing salesmen have just got no formats at all, and the low performing salesmen are red. As I say, you can have as many conditions as you like, and there are various ways you can do this conditioning in terms of you can highlight values in between, text that contains, if it's inside a certain date, and there's all sorts of options here on how you can set the conditional formatting. Now, what's coming recently, well, relatively recently, I'll just expand this column width to it and explain why. You have some features which are quite graphical. If you crunch numbers for a living, this won't be of interest to you. If you wish those numbers to be presented in a more graphical format, make them easy to see and read, then you might consider using these features here: data bars, color scales, and icon sets. What data bars does, it draws a specific little histogram beneath the cell in question. So what I shall do, if I highlight the cells where I wish to apply the conditional formatting, and then I go to data bars, I can hang the mouse over these options here to the right, and you can see what happens. It actually draws a little graph, a little histogram in the cell in question relative to the values that you've selected. And that's why in this situation we don't do this, because if you include the total, then you would get a distortion in the histograms at the back. So don't select the values as the total values, just select the totals and apply the conditional formatting, and you see the data bars, and you've got 6 different colors, and you've got either gradient fill or solid fill, and you can apply it that way. And clearly, if these numbers change here accordingly, so I put in some low values for these cells here, and therefore the graph changes in the back. Quite a useful little feature. Color scales gives you something that's akin to what we were doing before in terms of red is good, green is bad, etc., etc., whichever way around it was. So here you have green, yellow, red color scale, which is what I was applying. Here we have an all green color scale, and the same thing applies here. So you could use color scales accordingly. Icon sets is a little bit different. Just let me take the conditional formatting off those. So I will clear the rows cells, and now if I just go in and once again apply the conditional formatting, this time I'm going to do icon sets. Some may think this is a bit gimmicky, some might think may have some value in here, but here we've got 3 arrow options, and here we've got 3 different shapes options, triangle options. Same thing with 4, Same thing with 5, and now you've got ticks and arrows and everything else you've got. This is not the strength of the Wi-Fi, by the way. This is just a little mounting grade thing, and it's all sorts of little options in terms of where the figures lie in terms of apply the conditional formatting. You might find that useful if you need to present. You might find it absolutely no use at all if you crunch numbers through, and I think there's value in both, so whichever one it is. So I'll just arbitrarily pick this one here, 4 arrows coloured, and that makes the puts the appropriate values in. So here 70 is obviously the lowest number, so you've got downward red arrow, and 190 is top, and along these here. So it splits it in values. It's not opposed to the top 4, the middle 4, and the bottom 4. It works on the values, and that's why we've only got 1 red arrow, because 70 is way below the rest of the values. So conditional formatting, again, really useful feature, quick to implement, and quite useful. Restricting the values that appears in cells with the data validation side, and conditional formatting, giving you a graphical representation. So let's crack on again. I'm not showing you any time to practice. I think I'll just crack on if you wish, if you've got nothing in the chat. So let's press on. Now, I want to talk about something called the clipboard. And the clipboard is part and parcel of Excel, but it's also part and parcel of Word. It's actually not just an Excel or a Word feature, it's an Office feature. And what happens with Clipboard is it's where you copy and cut to and paste from. And there are 101 ways of doing copies. Obviously, it doesn't matter how you do it. Whatever you copy or cut appears in the clipboard. The way to put this into play is from the home ribbon. You see you've got this clipboard section here, and you see copy, cut and paste and things you're familiar with. But what you may have not spotted is a tiny little arrow that goes from northeast to southwest. This guy here, and as it says here, see all the items you've copied in the clipboard. And because I didn't have that, so here's something that I copied earlier. Yeah, so here's something I already copied. So what I'm going to do is copy something else. So I highlight my salespeople here, and however, I'm going to do a right mouse click and copy. You will see we've now got a second entry in the clipboard. And now I could go away to another place, and I could copy these numbers here. Doesn't matter what I copy, same process or how I copy. Now I've got a third entry in the clipboard. There's a misapprehension that copy, cut and paste, there's only one space available to do that copy and cut, and then one space available to paste. That is not the case. What you can see over here is the space for 24 entries in the clipboard, which is why when you do the 25th copy or cut of the day, you sometimes get that message that you've seen, but you may have just dismissed, quite rightly so, that says the clipboard is full, what do you want me to do? In that situation, don't worry about it, because what happens is the last 24 things that have been copied or cut appear in this list down here. The real value of this is that I can select any of these and I can paste them back wherever I want them to be pasted. So I could, for example, go to this spreadsheet, this worksheet here, and I could choose to paste those numbers back at that position simply by clicking, and that's where they get pasted. And I could click this lot into here, and I could click here, and they appear down here. Now, the real value here is that, as I've just mentioned, Clipboard does not only belong to Excel, it belongs to all the other Microsoft applications. So in this situation, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put Word up on the screen here, and we see from the home ribbon we have exactly the same clipboard display with the 3 values. So if I wanted to insert this text here somewhere in this particular document, I position the cursor accordingly, and then all I would need to do is click over here, and that text appears in the Word document. I'm just illustrating the point. I wouldn't do this inside a piece of courseware, but I think you see where I'm getting at. Or I could actually place these Excel figures into the Word document and they appear. So what that saves you doing is having to minimize the screens, get the Word document open, copy it, then get the Excel spreadsheet, drop the Word document, load the Word Excel document, and it saves you switching between the applications to actually get to entries that you've copied, because you've got 24 slots over here. Real quick time saver. It's tremendous. What I'm doing if I'm writing 5 or 6 different emails on this of similar content but not the same, I will put the narrative of those emails into the clipboard here. I'll just write them and copy them, and then when I'm writing my emails, I'll just pick the relevant section that I need and paste it directly into the email, and away I go. I just find that's so time consuming. It's time saving. It's really useful. So just back to the point, don't think that you've just got one slot. You've got 24 slots for your clipboard, and they can be used for any of the Office applications. Superb. Okay. I shall go back to, and in the absence of questions, I shall crack on. Wonderful. Okay. How are we doing on time? Oh, 10 past 10. We're okay for a bit. That's fine. Don't forget, guys, please keep these questions going. It'd be good to see them. Right. Pivot tables. Now, they tend to be a little bit of a mystery. They're used on a fairly frequent basis. And what pivot tables do is to provide a summary of the data. So I shall just minimize my clipboard so you can see everything here. And what you're seeing here is a list of individual sales made by each of my salesmen in specific regions. So Donald Duck sold 23 blue ones in the north, Mickey Mouse sold 34 red ones in the north, and so on. And you see I've got an arbitrary 60 however many entries of data here. Pivot tables is basically summarizing the data. So for example, if I wanted to learn how Donald Duck had made, you could use filters, and I'm sure you're all familiar with filters. So from this point up here, I could go to filter, I could put the filter on, and then I can just have a look at one of my salespeople, Donald Duck, and I could see quite simply here that Donald Duck's made that many sales, and if I wanted that total sales, I could just highlight the numbers here, and you can see we've got 6 of them, and he's sold 270 widgets down here. That's fine, it's quick way of doing stuff. If you just wanted the information on Donald Duck, that's how you would quickly do it within the space of about 30 seconds or so. However, there's a variation there which you might want to think about, which will give you everybody's details all at once, and that is a feature called pivot tables. So I'll just take the filters off to give me all the data, and I'll explain how pivot tables work. To introduce a pivot table, it's important that we have headings here for our raw data, and the easiest way to do this is to highlight the data before they go in. So I'm going to go all the way down in our spreadsheet, highlight the data, and now I'm going to insert a pivot table. If I click on insert ribbon up here and I go to pivot table, I could go recommended pivot tables, but we won't learn anything if I show that. I'll just go to pivot table, and then you can see you get this particular dialog box. Don't have to do anything because we've already selected the data we wish to summarize. All I have to do at this point is click OK. And when I click OK, this appears to be quite a complicated screen to look at, and folks tend to get put off because they're not sure about what's going on here. However, what you will see down on the right hand side, you will see our headings. So the headings of our data said I had a sales column, a colours column, a region column, and a value column. And as it suggests here, drag fields between the areas below. So this area here defines the rows in my summary. This area here defines the columns in my summary, and this here is basically what sits in values is the numbers. So I'm interested in how many sales each of my salespeople have made. So you could click here on these buttons, but I'd encourage you not to. What I'm going to ask you to do instead is click on sales and drag that into the rows area. And you can see we have our salespeople listed here. So if you didn't want salespeople, you could have regions instead. So I can drag that out, pull it in, drag that one down, and now I've got my north-south regions. So that's the information. Now I want to know how many northern sales I've made and how many southern sales I've made. What I do instead is I click on value, I drag that down, and now we have an instant I've sold 900 north and 13,1338 in the south. So this is a 2D table. I could have a 3D table. What I could do, I could also introduce colors up here, dragging that down, and now I have a breakdown of, I've got 666 in the north and 666 blue ones in the north, and I've got 234 red ones in the north, and I have a total of 900. And likewise, I've got the figures for the south. Really useful, really straightforward, quick way of analysing those sales. And if the data changes, what I do is I come up here and I click the refresh button on the pivot table and make the change accordingly. Okay, so I could go in and change one of these numbers, make them really daft. So I change that number here, and now when I go back into my pivot table, I could make the change accordingly. Just let me find where that pivot table's gone. Just bear me a second, guys, please. Here we go. I think it's that fella. Sorry, just lost my pivot table. I won't waste your time. It's actually, sorry, I'm not sure where I put the pivot table. But when you do that and you go back and you click refresh, then that information appears on the pivot table by doing the change. Cracking. So that's the pivot table side of things. That's how you make your new pivot tables. Okay. Last thing I want to cover on Excel is charts and graphs. It's really straightforward. Back in the day, it used to be fairly complex to make charts and graphs. It's now relatively easy, but it's all about highlighting the data we're interested in. So what I'm going to do is highlight the data. And how do I insert a chart or a graph? I come up here and I click on insert, and you see we have this area here on charts. Now you could pick your own. However, what I'm going to do is point you at something called recommended charts. And in recommended charts, it gives me a selection of charts it will produce based upon the data I have selected. So it's saying I could have a clustered column, a stacked column, I could have a clustered bar, and it's given me various options on what it believes to be the best bet. And I can simply click on the top one there, and I can click OK. And now I get a chart side by side to my data. And if I change the data, the chart is reflected. It's not like pivot tables where I have to go and refresh it. In this situation, if I type that information, just change one of these values, you can see the chart changes accordingly. So inserting charts and graphs is really very, very straightforward in Excel these days. Now I might decide that I want to change the format of that chart, and if I want to do so, if I click anywhere on the chart, you see these two ribbons up here appear that weren't there when we clicked away. So I'll click away, you'll see these two disappear. If I click back on, you see they appear again, chart design and format. If I click on these, you can then say, I want a different view of my chart, I want a different style. So I might want to have a look at this one, see what they look like. And it's simply a click it, see what, in fact, you don't even have to click it, you can just hang the mouse over and you can see the change. And you've got all sorts of options here. Do I want a black background one? Do I want one that looks like that? And it really is nice and straightforward to generate charts and graphs in a very simple manner. Okay, easy. Now, there's an even quicker way of producing a chart or a graph. If I highlight the data I'm interested in, And then all I need to do at this point is press the F11 key on the keyboard. It instantly produces me a chart or a graph. So if you're not too concerned about the style, you want a graph in 5 seconds, that's all you need to do. Just simply press the F11 key and you get a new worksheet down here called Chart 1, which works beautifully. And to get that chart, for example, into a PowerPoint presentation in a Word document, you could use the clipboard as before, and you could use something called the Snipping Tool, which you may or may not be familiar with. There's one called the Snipping Tool, and Windows 10 is replacing the Snipping Tool with something called Snip and Save. But the Snipping Tool, if we click on it, what happens is the screen goes grey, and then I can draw around the area I'm interested in, and that is now copied into my clipboard simply by using the Snipping Tool. I can make slight changes to that. I can say, for example, use this coloured pen here inside Snipping Tool, and I might just want to emphasize these numbers here and these numbers here, so I can use the pens accordingly, or I can use a highlight pen. I can draw around a specific area or across a specific area, and if I didn't mean to do that, I can rub it out and get rid of it, and I can save that snip as a JPEG, etc., etc. I can copy it, as I have been doing before, remembering the clipboard. And a really useful button here is clicking that one would actually generate this particular email as an this particular snip as an automatic email. So I just click on there, and had we set up correctly, sorry, this one isn't, had we set up correctly, that would just generate an email for you. So send snip is a really useful feature. So lots covered there in a fairly short space of time in terms of Excel. Have we got any questions at this point or anything in the chat? Because I don't intend to say any more about Excel at this point, unless anybody has any specific questions. Okay, good stuff. Lovely. Okay, we've had 50 minutes or so. What I'll do is I'll just propose a 5 or 10 minute break now, a natural break in proceedings, because I've finished Excel. I'm going to stay on here to answer any questions and to have a look at the chat, and I'll restart at 10:30 if that's okay with everybody.
Thank you, Andy. All good. Yeah, feel free to get yourself a brew or whatever, or ask Andy some questions.
Thanks, mate.
Or even myself.
Good stuff. Mm-hmm.
Can never tell who's gone for a brew with all these cameras that we can't see. There might be everybody, just nobody there. There might be everybody there.
What do you make of this tier 3 thing, Rich?
I'm happy with it. Hey, it is what it is, isn't it?
Inevitable,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. It was coming, wasn't it? So we just all have to get on with it. My personal preference would have been a lockdown, 2 or 3 week lockdown, but that's my personal opinion, not the one of Affinity or any other organisation I'm involved with.
Companies are available. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
There's a bit of I think there's uncertainty to tier 3, is my opinion, and I know it gets reviewed on 28 days, but yeah.
Do you think it'll last 28 days? I don't know. We don't know, do we? We're just shooting in the dark. I mean.
Yeah, exactly. It's too uncertain.
Yeah, I think about total lockdown is how do manufacturing companies, big manufacturing companies, cope? They can't keep shutting the plant and opening the plant and shutting the plant and opening the plant, can they? That just don't work for them. It needs to be consistent. But
yeah, I think it's obviously hospitality that's taking it harder. I think generally we all can. In tier 3, we can all continue to work, but it's my local one's supposed to be spending Christmas Day at the minute for lunch.
Yeah.
It's closing Saturday, so we'll you know what I mean. We might have to revert back to back in the house Christmas Day. We'll see.
Yeah, I think we've all. Yeah, we're going to take a hit in some way, shape, or form, aren't we? Yeah. I mean, the good thing from your point of view is you don't have to go and watch Wednesday at the moment. It's got to be important.
Sorry, what's that? Are you making a point there?
Very good.
Just 1 point you're making.
Very
yes?
good. Just 1 point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Getting warmer in here anyway.
We've scored 2 goals and got 1 draw, and we're still 7 points of the year, mate. So I don't know. All a bit bizarre, isn't it?
We'll see you next season. Don't worry.
You're right. You might be right. I don't know. Maybe not. I think you're doing enough, aren't you? Yeah, you're getting points.
We're doing it, right? Yeah. Oh, I'm happy.
See, Andy, did you said you were going to be doing a bit on possibly on Teams at the end of this as well? Did you say?
Yes, indeed, sir. Yeah, it's up that only say time dictates.
Yeah.
But it's only going to be a very snapshot about chats, a little bit about channels, and what's the channel, how it's used. So it's a bit on chat and a bit on the guts of Teams.
Yeah,
no, it's okay.
Yeah, I think if any of you guys are on the call, I've not been on one of the webinars. We're doing this every other Friday at the moment, and we're covering like it's quite a quick overview from Andy and Viv on bits of Microsoft 365. So Teams is one of them we're doing back end of the year again, I believe. We did one last week. Next week is Lists, which is a new app into 365. But if you're not using 365 to its full capability, there's some really useful stuff in there that you can do. Forms is a great thing, which you'll see a little bit of later when I send out the form for your feedback form. That's the word I'm looking for. The feedback form is done in something called Forms. It's really useful for stuff like that, or holiday forms, all sorts of different things you can do in that. That's a really useful bit of KX 365, and it's getting much better. So it also becomes almost becomes your system that you use alongside your internal CRM.
In fact, away from this, Andy, I was just gonna. Never mind. In fact, Rich, I was just gonna say, have you used DocuSign and Adobe Sign before? Just because someone were asking his opinion on it. I've only used Adobe Sign before, so I've never used DocuSign. I don't know what it's like.
DocuSign, really clever.
Yeah.
In terms of sending out things people need to sign as a legal requirement.
Yeah.
It works perfectly well, as does stuff like SurveyMonkey. That works perfectly well. Things of that nature, and Dropbox, that works perfectly well. But all those three things I've just mentioned, there are alternatives, and DocuSign works fine. However, you could use forms, and the reason I'm mentioning that is that you've already paid for these products in your 365 subscription, and have a word with the guys at Affinity for which particular 365 license that you need. DocuSign is fine. However, you could generate a form to do the same thing using the forms feature of 365. I'm very impressed with DocuSign. It's a really good product, but you might need to pay the license for it if you're using it as a supplier. If you're just asked to sign something, a recipient, then you don't actually need a license for that. But if you're generating documents for other people to sign, then you do need a license, and it's that license you could avoid paying for by the fact that you could use forms instead.
I think that you make a good point there. If for forms, if you're using SurveyMonkey, use forms. If you're using Dropbox, why you're not using your SharePoint on OneDrive if you're on 365? Because you're paying an extra £10 a month for Dropbox, whereas within your Microsoft 365 monthly subscription on the business standard at £9.40, you get it included. So there's lots of bits and bobs like that. That's available in 365.
The classic one, the classic saver, is something called MyIQ. I don't know if you've heard of this guy.
Yes. People
generally record their mileage when we are allowed out. Record their mileage on they attempt to load it on a spreadsheet, and they might forget they've done a journey or whatever. What MyIQ does, it's you have your phone in the car, so it records your mileage for you automatically. Don't need it switched on; it just have to be there. That's fine. So you don't send and receive calls. It's just on and active, but you can leave it dormant. What happens? What I do every Sunday is I load the MyIQ app on my phone, and I swipe left for business miles and right for private miles, and it builds the spreadsheet in the format that my accountant recognises in terms of business miles and private miles. It's easy, and MyIQ is part and parcel of your 365 subscription. It's easy to load. You just load the app, and away you go. No training needed. It's great.
Yeah, might have to use that one, to be fair. Do we just record as in people HR, Rich? I can't remember. Obviously, I don't drive, so I ain't got a clue.
Yes, we use an app called People HR at the minute. Yeah, for recording hours. Cool. We're 10:31. We're ready
just
to rock and roll.
That's okay. I'll be 30
seconds. Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Super. Good to go, Rich?
All good for mine, Bill. Yeah.
Marvellous. Okay, guys, I'll share my screen, and what I want to spend 10, 15 or so minutes on, maybe a little bit longer, is to talk about some of the newer features inside Word. All I've got here is just a simple Word document, which happens to be some courseware, but it obviously could be anything. And you notice, by the way, from this morning's session that we've got the clipboard down the left-hand side, so we've still got the information there. So just a little bit of revision there. If I wanted to put the item that I copied using the snipping tool into a specific area. All I would need to do is position the cursor, click on that, and that drops that picture into the Word document for me. So just a bit of revision there on how we used Clipboard and how we use the snipping tool. Okay. Right, now Word has been around for an awful long time, but one of the newer features on Word I just want to focus on, and maybe we can have a little bit of fun with this, is a feature called Dictate. Now Dictate, if you won't mind loading a Word document, guys, just as on the secondary screen if you can, or just watch if you can't. Dictate, as it would suggest, is a way that you can talk into your Word document and it produces the words automatically. There have been various products that have done this. Dragon Naturally Speaking is a really good one, but now they've actually introduced it into a workable format inside Word. So from the home ribbon, completely to the right hand side here, you will see a voice area, and the only option in the voice area at the moment is something called Dictate, Office Dictation. So I click on that button and now I speak. Here is an example. Sorry, let me try again. Here is an example of how you can dictate straight into a Word document. Full stop. New paragraph. New paragraph. This is an excellent way of producing text inside your document if you are not the quickest typist in the world. Full stop. This can be used in Outlook, PowerPoint, and many other Office applications. Full stop. I find this particularly useful when writing emails, which tend to be more chatty than formal Word documentation. Full stop. How easy is this? Have a go, guys. Just have a go for a couple of minutes. So could be interesting. If it doesn't quite work, it may just be making a little bit more of a better microphone on your laptop or whatever, but this is a really, really useful feature. So start Word, just start up a document and talk to it and see if it appears. And you will notice while I was doing that, I was actually saying some formatting in terms of new line, new paragraph, full stop, and you can say things like comma and exclamation marks and things of that nature. Really useful, in fact, if you are a non-keyboard user. You could have a disability, which means you can't use a keyboard, and this is turning out to be very useful for those sort of users. Have a couple of minutes, give it a go, see how you get on.
I'm sure you could have some fun with it, and you could, under certain accents it might struggle with, but that'd be the test, wouldn't it?
Most definitely. Yeah.
I must admit, I've got an Alexa at home, and I have tried different accents with it, and it is quite good. It recognise them.
It recognises.
Apart from the one you can't understand now. Yeah.
It recognises Viv's Northern Irishness, so it recognises.
There we go. There we go. You can turn it on in Teams as well, can't you? It's one of the features of Teams now that you can actually turn on the dictation, and it'll appear. The words will appear.
Mm. I do actually find it more useful inside Outlook if I'm, inverted commas, writing emails, because they tend to be a bit more chatty than documentation. But each to their own. It's up to them. Marvelous. Okay, so have a play with that maybe outside of outside this session here. But Microsoft have done an awful lot of work to make this dictate feature far more friendly than it used to be. And those of you who go back a few years will remember products like IBM Via Voice and things like that, and they were just awful. They were just absolutely hideous. But this has actually taken some of the technology from Dragon Naturally Speaking, and some of the technology that Affinity can tell you about, like when you say 1 for this option, 3 for that option. They've used some of that stuff in terms of putting this together, but really useful, guys. Okay. Right, what other relatively new things have we got inside Word? I'm not going to talk about bold and underline, that's not the point of today. It's more to point you at some of the new features and how we've used them. Okay. What I do like, especially inside these newer version of Word, is something called version history. So if we click up here on the title bar, okay, the file name, where it's located, I've got it in OneDrive, and now you've got a button here called version history. What version history tells you about is when this document's been modified, by who, and you can go back and open that specific version. Now, outside of the scope, you know, we could talk in detail about SharePoint and OneDrive and where all these things are stored, but and version history still works on those particular ways of storing your documentation, whereas it doesn't work on things like Dropbox and whatever. So as you can see here, I made 4 changes to this document today, and I made 3 changes to the document. But the beauty is, if I clicked any of these here, I could go back and open the version from 1935 yesterday. So you've made the changes, you've had autosave on, so it's safe for you, or you've actually done a save, and you do want to go back simply and quickly to a previous version of this document. It's simply a case of clicking up here, doing version history, and it tells you the various versions of this specific document. I find that really good, especially in situations where you are collaborating and working together on a document with colleagues. I find that really good. Okay. Editor, relatively new fit. Well, it's not a few features because you can get at these anyway. However, it's put them all in one place. So your editor says, I've got 1 grammar check here, my spelling is all right, and I'm not offering any specific refinements here. So these 2 buttons, you may remember them because they're together in the top right hand corner. We've now got a dictate button and we've now got an editor button, which are really useful. Okay, right. Those of you who work outside of English, you know, work in another language, might find the translate feature useful. Okay, the translate feature is on the review ribbon. Don't forget, if you're finding it on a regular basis, you could right mouse click it and you could add it to the quick access toolbar, as we were mentioning before we had a quick break. Yeah, and it says translate content to a different language using Microsoft Translator online service. So you basically have to be online to do this. Okay, so I've got this just 10 pages of Word document, nothing too complex about it, some pictures in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it to translate. So I can translate the selection of the document, or I can translate the whole thing. Okay. So it's loaded the translator here, it's in the process of loading the translator. So I'm going to think about it. Okay. And so here we have a selection of the document, or the whole document, from auto detect. Recommend that it recognizes which language it's in, so we're going to put English, and it will be daft to translate it into English. So doesn't matter, I'm going to translate it into French, for example, and you can see there were whole heaps of them. And if you didn't want to make that selection every time and you always wanted to translate into that specific language, you could just tick on that little box there, always translate into that language, and it would do always that particular translate for you without being asked the question. So at this point, it's simply a case of clicking the translate button. Yeah, it takes a little bit of time. It's got 10 pages to go through, and as you'll see, it ignores the pictures and it's translated the text into French, including the headings, and kept the rest of the format of it. Fast. He kept the pictures as was. Yeah, I'm not saying the translation is superb and 100%, but it's damn well pretty there. It's pretty good. And again, don't pay for a separate translation service. Don't think you need to do this anymore, because the translation does it for you. Now, you have to be a little bit wary sometimes. You can see here that the process has just slightly amended some of the text here into the incorrect format, but if you're using these style buttons up here, that can do the correction for you. So it's certainly just worth a quick check to just check that things like that haven't occurred, and we've got some different formatting on the text. But it's just a fabulous time-saving technique if you need to translate from A to B, especially as we're not in Europe anymore, or we won't be after 1st of January. So yeah. Anybody get questions about that? It's fairly straightforward, fairly easy to use, nothing too complicated. Okay. And it even does things like update your table of contents for you, because it recognises the table of contents is now in French and not in English. Good with that? Lovely. Okay. So those are the newer features of Word that I've found most useful with the version which sits with 365. And these features, if you just don't have 365, if you just buy it independently, it's in version 2019, but it's part of 365 subscription, so why wouldn't you use it anyway? Marvelous. Okay, just want to spend a little bit of time now just demonstrating how I use Outlook. Some of it is existing, some of it is new features which you may be interested in. Okay, so I will just get my Outlook on the screen so you can see this. Just closing that reminder, just bear me a second. Okay, lovely. Okay, so you may be aware some of these are disappearing already from auto. So some of these are disappearing. I've got some rules on to remove some of these options in here to get rid of some of these entries, which is fine. Okay, now I make a big play of having my inbox pretty much down to 0 and keeping it that way. It really helps me be very, very much organized in terms of using the tasks instead of using my inbox as a to-do list. I don't want to use my inbox as a to-do list. I want to use my to-do list as a to-do list, which is part and parcel of tasks. Because I normally don't have my inbox on view. What I have in view is my calendar side by side with my task list. And this is not something I've made up for the demonstration today. This is my real calendar, which sits side by side by my task list. And what that lets me do is view what I've gone for the day. So I've got this training session, a couple of meetings afterwards, bit of social stuff here, etc. But these are my calendar items which have got fixed, specific time, finite times against them. And over here, I have my task list. Now, what I want to illustrate you today is how you actually generate entries in my task list and how I utilize them. This is how I do it. So if I go back to my inbox, I'm just going to identify, I won't use this one, but I just want to illustrate the point. Let's say I have this specific email landed in my inbox and I wanted to make a task out of it. Here's the process. You might want to do the same in practice, it's up to you. I'm going to use a right mouse click and drop of that particular email. In fact, I'll use this one because I do want that to be a task that I'm going to access, and I want to talk to this lady, I want to contact her. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do a right mouse click and drop of this specific email over tasks down the bottom here. Now, if your ribbon doesn't look like this, what you need to do is click on the 3 dots and change the navigation options not to have compact tick there. If you have compact tick there, they don't appear in this format, they appear as little icons. But I untick compact navigation. That's the way I prefer to work. I can clearly see mail, calendar, people, contacts, notes, etc. down here. So just to emphasize the point, I'm taking this email, it's going to automatically drop out of my inbox, and I'm going to make a task out of it. So I right mouse click and I drag and drop that email over the task folder. Don't forget, I've done a right mouse click, not a left mouse click, and I let go at that point, and it gives me various options. Now, the object of the exercise here is to empty my inbox. So I'm not going to do any of these copies. Instead, I'm going to take the option that says move here as task with attachment. Now, if I click on that, I get a separate dialog box. This dialog box is creating me a task, you can see up here. And so I'm going to give that a specific task. I'm just going to call it Sandy, because this is the lady I want to speak to. I'm going to categorize that task because I'm looking for her on a specific area. I'm going to class it under IT training, and I could waste an awful lot of time in my day if I filled in lots of information here about giving it a priority or telling me how much percentage I've completed this task. Not interested. The only field I'm interested in here is a due date. When do I want to do something about this specific task? And I'm going to set it for the purpose of our illustration for tomorrow. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to type myself a little reminder here, which I'm going to date stamp. So it's the 22nd of October, and I'm going to say, and this is real, I'm going to say, call Sandy, excuse me, can't type very well, revisit to Derby on Friday. I'm setting myself a little reminder here. Now you could argue why you're doing that, because you'll probably remember to call Sandy and read the visit on Derby. But what I'm basically doing here, I'm setting up a log of the task, and it's all going to go into one place. I click on Save and Close, and a couple of things have happened. That entry has deleted from the inbox. It's gone. It's no longer there. But what I've done instead, I've set it in my task list. So if I now go to the calendar view of Outlook, and just drag this screen across here a little bit, you can see I have the task for Sandy in my list of things to do tomorrow, and it's no longer in my inbox. So if I just change the view slightly, so I've just got today and tomorrow showing, and I can drag this a little bit further across so I can see dates. What you'll notice here, this Sandy task is here, and I can pick it up and action it tomorrow. And these are the 6 things that I'm trying to do today, and these are the things that I've got lined up for tomorrow. So, is this just a to-do list? No, it's much, much more than that. I could click on any of these options here. Here's some work we're doing with Dave and Express Coating, so this is for real. And here we have a log of everything that I've actually done in connection with our good mates at Affinity, working specifically with Dave on this particular client who's looking to use Access. And here's what I did. Here's the comments I've made. Here's emails that I've dragged in as to be part and parcel of this specific. Here's Dave's information. And I find this incredibly useful, almost like a bit of a poor man's CRM in terms of keeping a track of how I'm doing with this particular job, how I'm doing with this particular job, and so on. And here's something we've been working with Elliot with Tag Advance. And so when I'm chatting to Elliot next time, I just double click on this and I can see what's gone on. We sent an email to Affinity requesting an update on the 10th of October following this specific email. So that's how I keep a track, an easy track using Outlook. And I don't specifically have entries in my inbox because I want to keep my inbox clear. I want to keep it nice, want to keep it fresh. Don't want to have 7 entries about the same process coming down on my inbox, because the beauty of this is that everything is in one place and one place only, and it's always under this specific area here. So if I want to add some more information about the new task I've just created, I can click up here and I can say I have a conversation with Sandy. Or for example, I could attach a file. I could insert up here and I could go and get the spreadsheet that we've just been working on, and I could add this spreadsheet to this particular task. Really useful. I won't, because it's not relevant, but I was just illustrating a point of how I use Outlook in terms of it being a CRM. Guys, there's a data course on this. I just wanted to introduce you to the process of getting your inbox to 0 and keeping it that way. because it's a really useful feature, and how you use your task manager. Because the beauty of this over here as well is, if I don't get this specific one done today, I'll have the chat tomorrow about Claypenny properties, then it becomes tomorrow's task just by clicking on it and dragging it down, and then it's a task for tomorrow, not today. If I want to do something about one of these today, I could go, right, I can make this today's task instead. You may use things like Salesforce. If you're in the sales area for a CRM, you might use Dynamics, you might use a Microsoft product. I just find this extremely useful. Any specific questions on how I use Outlook as a CRM? Okay, no problem. Just back to illustrating the point about how we were using Dictate earlier. So if I go back to my emails, okay, and do a new email. Oh, it's a bit on the screen over here. Let me drag it across. Here we go. There's a dictate button. The general idea. Yeah, you can use this, you can dictate, but just be wary, if you're writing emails on Dictate, it can't be in HTML format. It has to be in plain text. If you try and dictate in HTML, it doesn't recognize it. So when you're dictating, use into Outlook with the dictate feature, make sure you're on plain text. And when you've dictated it all, you can then change it back to HTML before you send it. And the other thing you might reference as well is what we were talking about before lunch, before the break, in terms of you've still got the clipboard here. And so you could add that specific piece of text into the area here, and it adds it as part of this specific email. Lovely. Now, in terms of a couple of email features, I won't send that to nobody. In terms of email features that have been around a while, and you might find them useful, I use something called delay delivery on a fairly frequent basis. Let me explain what that's about. Okay. Yeah, so I'm writing an email here. I've gone to the options button, and here we have delayed delivery, and here we have direct replies to. Now, what are those? Okay, we've got read receipts. I'm not sure how valuable these are these days, turning B, C, and C off and on, but here we've got delayed delivery. Now, what delayed delivery does, it allows me to send an email at a specified point in the future. It could be that you're out of the office for a couple of days, Outlook has to be on for it to be sent, but you're still out the office. What you can actually do is do not deliver before, and you can specify a date and time that email goes. So, for example, with the trainers I work with, I might want them to send a quick reminder about a session they're delivering tomorrow. So what I would do, I could write the email at this point. I would say, do not deliver before today at 4 o'clock. And then at 4 o'clock, it comes round and it actually sends the email for me. And I can set these way, way, way in the future. And I frequently do. They sit in your outbox until such time as it clicks round to the do not deliver time, and away you go. So you know you're not going to be in the office. This is a way of scheduling emails to go at certain times. If we've delivered an IT training session, I'll often schedule an email to go to a client the morning after, and I don't have to worry about it remembering to send it, because I use this delay delivery feature here. Couple more features while we're here, using voting buttons. What voting buttons talks about, it allows you to invite the recipient of your emails to vote on approved, rejected, or you could put anything on there. Are you going to the meeting in the north, south, east, or west? You could actually specify those, and then you could get the replies back. They tick the appropriate north button, or south button, or east button, or west button. And that's a simple way of tracking and voting from an email. The other one I quite like is have replies sent to. This option allows a different person to receive the reply than the person who sent it in the first place. So you might be looking to pass responsibility for a particular email to one of your colleagues. you want to write the initial email, but then you want someone else to pick it up and take it from there. So you can specify have replies sent to, and you select the individuals, and it goes to them, and they deal with it from that point onwards. All sorts of little features like that, and say those aren't particularly new inside Outlook. I've used them for quite a while, but nevertheless I still find them pretty useful. Okay, that's all I particularly wanted to say on tips and tricks on Outlook. I know time's pressing, we've had an hour and a half already. I don't know if anybody's got any questions on the chat, or you want to practice that. Anything?
There is a question in the chat for you, Andy, about the schedule from Rory. Does the schedule still work if you're not online at the same time of send?
Depends if you use Exchange Server or not. Because if you use an Exchange, if you've got all your Outlook files inserted as part of your C drive and they all sit there, no, your computer's not on, so it can't recognise your C drive. However, the majority of businesses use Exchange Server or the newer version of Exchange Server, so your files aren't local, your files are on your server somewhere, and it will just be picked up that way. So 95% of the cases, yes, unless you're a simple home user and you don't have a server and you just have a laptop or a PC, in which case your PC would have to be on for it to work.
Perfect. Thanks.
Cool, thanks, Andy.
No problem.
We also have another question around Outlook. You know the feature of the recall button when sending emails? Do you have any? You just laughed.
It depends how quick you are.
I've been reading a lot about specific servers. It won't work on if the other user has another server type or another mail provider.
I think there's no definitive answer. I think it's almost a bit haphazard in terms of is there a Y in the day? Not quite, but it's not as tidy and professional as it could be. And it used to work beautifully in the days when we had dial-up and you could stop it going. But comms these days look a bit quicker. Rich Elliott, I don't know if you have a specific view on that. Or
I'm going to send my dad once told me about dial-up.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I don't know if Affinity have a view on that.
Yeah, sorry, I missed the start of the question, and I had to jump off to grab a phone call.
The question was the value on Elliot on the where you actually come in and you can recall an email before it's sent. It seems to be a bit haphazard and does work in some cases and doesn't work in other cases. Do you guys have a view on this and the value on it?
In fairness, I've noticed it be a bit 50-50 as well, because you can recall it, but a lot of the time the other person's read the email anyway, so it doesn't really make a difference, I guess. But I think it's just a feature which they've not probably put as much time into as they could on 365. Is my personal opinion at the minute.
Yeah, I think mine's similar. If you've sent that email, you're not getting recall. Doesn't work.
Yeah, being a bit facetious, but yeah, before you press send, ask a friend. Yeah. I'm sorry, that didn't specifically answer your question, and it's not clear even amongst the knowledgeable IT guys about what's going on here. And I think Elliot's right. They've not, it's not been the main focus of Microsoft 365 attention, because I think what they're trying to do is drive you towards Teams, even with Outlook. Within internally, then you can just delete the message. Which I actually did that last night. To I sent a message and then thought that reads a bit wrong, so I deleted it and reworded it. Elliot knows about that email, so he'll have a laugh about that. So yeah, that's my opinion of it. Did he get it trapped in time?
I did get it deleted before it was seen. Yeah.
That's useful to know. We looked at that's good to know. Excellent, guys. Okay. Brilliant. Okay. Any other specifics anybody wants to talk about, discuss, guys? Are we okay? Okay. Right. Okay. Let's have a little bit of time, I think, talking about Teams and the way it kind of hangs together. I think, Rich, again, just putting you on the spot a minute. You're seeing an increasing use of Teams across your customer base? Is
Yeah,
that...
definitely. I mean, I'm for those that know me, I'm not particularly IT. It's something I've done for 20 years, and apparently it's changed a little bit. Who knew? So it's pretty, you know, it's pretty new to me again. But I'd love Teams. I think it's great, and I think the whole things that are happening around 365. You know, it's a really great product, much better than Zoom in my opinion. And I'm sat talking to you on a Mac, so I'm not some Windows convert. I do use a Mac.
For some reason.
So yeah, exactly. So I do, but I'm using Teams. I'm using a Microsoft product on a Mac. So yeah, so I'm all on board with Teams. I think it's great. I think the bits that they're putting into it, it's definitely worth coming on to, you know, the Teams webinar that'll be in, I think, in December time, but I'll send you details of that. It's definitely worth coming on for that half an hour just to see what's in it and what you can do and the bits they're adding. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, so my biggest problem with Teams at the minute is trying to find webcams and headsets for people because they're in such high demand and they're just not in stock anywhere, which is a massive pain in the backside. So, but other than that, yeah, the demand for Teams has definitely gone through the roof.
For the best reasons, I think, because I think the way I am kind of viewing this is that I think that they're going to want us to use Teams in the future on the, you know, much more regularly, aren't you? I think they see Teams as almost the desktop of the future. Is that a fair comment, gents? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think even Rich, you've been using it for networking meetings and stuff, haven't you? And to be fair, it seems really good, especially if you've got an event which is in like a different city and it's difficult to commute anyway. It saves a lot of time when you can do it on Teams with the new breakout room features and stuff like that.
Yeah, breakout rooms is about to be. They're rolling that out into November, aren't they? I think so. Yeah, that's a new one that'll see.
Yeah, breakout rooms is it's November. Yes, you're right, Rich. Sorry, yes. I was just trying to recall the conversation I had with Viv yesterday. Yeah, breakout is...
I'm just about to write a blog on it this week, so watch out on our website for that.
Yeah, and what they've taken is they've taken a lot of features that were in Zoom and incorporated them. Just a little bit of a word of warning for you guys, if you can. I would not recommend you using Zoom as a business to business communication unless you're doing some networking. If you're having a family quiz, fine, Zoom's the man. If you're just having a one-to-one with an individual or you're doing a bit of a networking across, that's fine, it works for that. However, if you're having a conversation with a client which involves confidential information, you might be an IFA talking to a customer, please use Teams, don't use Zoom. The reason I'm saying that is you may have heard of something called Zoom bombing. Zoom bombing is where inappropriate content has been placed on into the meeting that you're having with the individual, and also they can steal your content. Zoom will tell you it's end-to-end secure. It's not, whereas Teams, as much as you can get it secure, it is secure. So you can pretty much guarantee that encryption is in place with Teams, and it's not with Zoom. So
yeah,
just
couldn't agree more with that, Andy.
Just be a little bit. Okay. Hopefully, guys, you can see my team screen on the screen now. I've shared it, and there's nothing really too complex about it, especially if you've in the past used things like Skype for Business and features of that nature. What Microsoft have done is they've taken the valuable bits out of many of their previous products and they've incorporated it into this all-encompassing thing called Teams. And Teams is many things, but Teams is primarily a communication and a collaboration tool, which is included in your 365 license. And talk to Rich and Elliot and the guys at Affinity about this, about the version of 365 that you need to do various functions. You can increase them, but for very little cost, you can get yourself up and running on Teams. And there's even a no-cost option, but you can't hold meetings and things. You can take part, but you can't hold them. So Really straightforward pricing and easy, and it's replaced things like Skype for Business and things of that nature in terms of how you chat and meet and call and how you can collaborate from anywhere. Okay, because various bits of software, for example, Skype for Business is soon to be retired. That won't take place anymore. Okay, so chat, guys, is nice and straightforward. It's nice and simple. Okay, think of Instant Messenger. So I have conversations with people, and previous conversations, these Affinity guys, you can see them down here. Previous conversations are recorded, and I'm now going to have illustrate this chat with a trainer. And it simply is a case of type in its straightforward format. I can type a message, so I can type. And I can press the enter key and that gets sent. So that message goes to this trainer person, whoever the trainer person is, or I can chat to Viv or Ray and various people. And you can pin these people here as frequent contacts, or you can actually just look them up in the search person and you can start new conversations. So I've typed a message and that's appeared. Okay, now little button here is quite invaluable. This is called multi-line message. So that means every time I press enter, it doesn't send a message. So here we've got multi-line messages. I can type that bit in here, then I can type the next line down, and I'm pressing enter in between just by pressing, yeah. So this time when you press enter, it doesn't send a message. You have to disappear down here. Sorry, that's just got covered. You have to do it and press the button to actually send that message with the send button here. And you can do much more than this. You can make it an importance, you can have delivery options here, you can add files. You don't actually attach a file, you attach a link to the file, but that actually points you at your OneDrive, or you can upload it from your computer, and the file can be part and parcel of the message you're sending to the individual. That's nice and straightforward. And you can do the socially things. You can add GIFs and smiley faces and emojis and stickers and all other sorts of stuff. Schedule a meeting with that individual, not an Outlook meeting, a Teams meeting. So this is simple two-way communication with people. So I'm going to press and press send, and that goes in there. Okay. Excuse this nonsense here, but you get the general idea here about how this works. Okay. You can use the at button to mention people. That is specific mentions. It's a bit like hashtags, which our good friends at Affinity know about. So what happened with this particular message, I was mentioned, and that's why that appears here. I'm presenting today, please contact Andy Hogg, and that was done with an at, and it points you to a specific contact and allows you to address them accordingly. Think of it like hashtags. A lot of the confusion about and a lot of time wasting is going on when you simply reply to an email and you click OK. What they've introduced here inside chat is a feature whereby you can put up smiley faces or hearts or whatever, and just to say a quick way of saying I've seen that, you can just click on it and that little thumbs up appears as part and part of the conversation here, so that you've liked it. So the recipient can see you've seen that message rather than having to type something in here. Okay, I've seen it, no problem at all. That's how you would create that. So chat, there's nothing too complicated about it. It's one-to-ones, it's easy to generate, and it's simple. No problem at all. Type in the message, away you go. Okay, you can filter stuff, you can search. Now, if you decide that a chat is not enough here and you want to actually start an audio or a video call with these individuals here, you can simply click here and you start a video call. You could click here and you could start the audio call, or you can actually share your screen with somebody, which is a really useful collaboration feature. You can add other people to the conversation by coming up here, or you could pop out the chat so it appears in a separate window, and that's a relatively new feature of Teams chat, the way you can pop this out, because it used to overwrite this window. Now if I click that, this chat would appear on a separate window on my computer, maybe on the secondary screen, and you can go from that point. So that's one-to-one communication. That's chat. Now, where this takes it to a different level is if we start using this feature called Teams, which is actually part and parcel of Teams. So if I click on Teams, there are some very, very similar features, and there are to the chat we've just used, and there are some features that are unique to Teams. So Teams is the way you collaborate, and one of the key things here is just an understanding about what a channel is. So in this demonstration here, we have a demo team, and we have a Microsoft training team, and we have an IT trainer team, and we have a training team. Underneath these areas here, we have what's defined as a channel. So basically, you get channels within teams. So in my demo team, I've got a general channel, which appears on all of them. That comes as default, as you can see. But now I set specific ones up. So I've got Affinity demo channel, a Chamber demo channel, and so on and so on and so forth. And we've actually got 4 hidden channels, and these here are private channels. Now, the guys at Affinity ourselves will be pleased to help you set those up. But basically, a channel belongs to a process or a team or a project. And if you use categories inside Outlook, there's an awful lot of similarities between Outlook categories and channels inside Teams. So if there are 6 or 7 of you, again, worldwide, as Elliot mentioned earlier, what you would do, you would set up a project Y channel, and then you would invite just the 7 people who are working on project Y as members of that channel. And the beauty of that is any conversation you have in this area here inside this channel is just seen by those 7 team members. Not everybody sees it, it's just the 7, so you can be as private as you'd like in terms of just keeping the conversation to 7 people, i.e. the people inside the channel. A channel could be geographical. You could have the Leeds office and the Manchester office and the Sheffield office and the London office. And then again, everything you see within inside that channel can only be seen by the members of that specific channel. Now, where this really scores is in reducing email. Because if you use Outlook for the process of email, you might send an email to 6 or 7, so say 7 different people. And if everybody does reply all, then you've got 8 times, you've got 64 entries back in your inbox. And then everybody does a reply all to reply all, then you've got 512 entries. And it just gets unwieldy, and you can't tell who replied when, and it's just confusing and doesn't really work very efficiently. What you do now, instead of using email for internal conversations in a sense, my strong recommendation is use Teams and chat within Teams, because as you can see here from this specific conversation, everybody inside this channel has seen this conversation that's gone here, and it doesn't matter who replies or who answers, it's all seen in line and everybody sees everything. So you can see who replied and when they replied, and you can like and love, and you can add files and you can reply, and so on and so on and so forth. We assisted a particular company in reducing email traffic, and what we said to them is you are not allowed to send internal emails. Internal emails are banned from this point onwards. As from next Monday, we're not going to use internal emails. We are going to insist that you actually use chat inside Teams, and we've set up the specific channels for you so you know who you're communicating with. You can't do anything about external emails, obviously, but internal emails, we said they were banned. It cut down the email traffic on the server by 62% inside a month. That's a pretty impressive number. And it also made their people far more effective and efficient because of the fact they didn't have inboxes that were massive and unwieldy. So, not saying you do that tomorrow, but just have a think about how you communicate via email with your colleagues, especially those who are inside a specific team. And I would strongly recommend that you start to set up different channels here. So inside an organization, you might have a finance channel, you might have an HR channel, you might have a programmer channel, comms channel and so forth. So you can set these up how you like, and it's really easy to set these up and to and if you want to learn how to do that, some of the Teams demos that we do on behalf of Affinity, we can show you how to do that, and it's really not very complicated at all. And you can see here in my IT channel, the IT trainer, we have an admin department, a technical department, a training department, and a specific channel where my colleague Viv and I share information. And wherever possible, we don't send internal emails. We communicate via this channel here, and it works really well. That's a pretty bit of a step change for many people. Again, Rich, putting you on the spot. I don't know if you've come across that or considered using that before, or you know any customers who are invoking that.
Elliot might have some more than I have that have talked about it. I haven't got any particular examples. I've certainly it's what we're trying to use more here. It's not quite there yet. It's like you say, it's a bit of a step change, but it's definitely something we're trying to do at Affinity. Is certainly if me filling the MD's inbox with emails, we do communicate via Teams. But it pings up on my watch, my phone, and my laptop. So and I'm sure it does the same to him. So Teams is definitely something we use.
It does, and by the way, via the administration processes, we haven't got time to go into any detail on this today, but on the administration processes, you can actually define where notifications appear by device. So you don't have to have it appearing on everything if you don't want it to. No,
it is a choice. It is a choice of mine. So.
It is a choice, but I know you're such a workaholic and such a good corporate company man that you always want to see everything.
I don't think workaholic drives with it. Work hard, play hard is mine.
Yeah, that's the I've just a quick illustration here on new conversations, for example. You can do all sorts in terms of highlighting them, now making them more apparent. If I could just scroll down a bit on this one, let me in. Sorry guys, start new. Where's my new conversations gone? Just got a slow internet for a minute. Just forgive me. Yeah, see here you can do things like add announcements. Yeah, so this is making it pretty clear. And here's where we've added files. And the real value in terms of using Teams is you've got these tabs across the top. You can add files with these tabs, and you can add specific tabs across here to, for example, point to specific web pages. Yeah, so here I've got a Teams training area, and I've got 2 more areas set up here. And if I wanted to add a tab here, I could decide. It keeps itself into line. Come on, guys, quicken up. I can decide I want to reference a website, or I want to reference a specific Excel spreadsheet, or I want to access a OneNote. And there are literally hundreds and hundreds of these apps which you can view and look at and have quick access to from the area of Teams at the top here. So say I was adding a new one, and that was a specific website, and I'll put bbc.co.uk. Yeah. Why isn't that a URL? I don't know why that's not a URL. You get the general idea, guys. You just type in a website in there. IT, is it, guys? Yeah.
No, you won't get us with that. HTTPS.
Oh right, sorry.
Yeah, ignore the www. That's what you missed off the BBC one.
There you go. Sorry, it's telling me. Sorry, it's telling me here. I should know this. Like, yeah, okay, fine. So you type in the name of the website here. You click on it, and then what appears is a specific website, and it's a website in real time as well. So here's my ITT website as a usable one, and it's the real thing, and you can review it, things of that nature. So you can add all sorts of things up here in terms of specific files, specific posts. You can just keep adding them. Really useful. Okay. I'm conscious of time, guys. It's whizzed itself around to pretty much 11, which has gone quickly now. Nearly 2 hours is plenty enough time to hear from me. Has anybody got any specific questions they want to raise, or anything they need me to go over again. Happy to stay on for as long as anybody wants to expand on any features. Not got a problem with that.
Yeah, feel free. While you've got Andy, feel free to ask him any of your 365 questions. I'm sure if he doesn't know the answer, we'll be able to find it out. But yeah, feel free to.
One thing I really do find useful, and you might want to make a note of this particular website up here, guys. I visit here quite a lot. This is there's a lot of confusion around 365 and what is it and what features are there and what do I get out what and what's replaced what. So this particular site here tells you the core apps and services, i.e. Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. are part and parcel of 365, and you get those anyway. But what we've got down here is additional apps and services, some which are freebies, some which are paid for. But this gives you a good idea if somebody's saying what's Sway, what's Yammer, what's Edge, and so on and so forth. That just gives you an illustration about what you get with each of the apps. So I was talking about MileIQ earlier. You click on there, and accurate mileage of reporting to the palm of your hand. Yeah, and it tells you how IQ works. Really useful. So I think that's a useful site you just want to make a note of for future reference. I use it quite a bit. Good.
Cool. Anyone for any more?
No, thank you. All good this end.
Cool. Thank you. Okay. Well, like I said, we'll be around for a bit longer, and if you guys want to drop off, feel free. But thank you for attending. Thank you, Andy, for that. And it's quite a generic course that, but if any of you guys actually do want something where for your business we can deliver a completely bespoke course, that might be more relevant. That's something we can obviously talk about and do from an Affinity point of view. I will be following up with an email after this with a feedback form in Forms, so you can learn a little bit about